You guys haven't heard from me since the December annual meeting about where we're at in terms of this process of CBC moving. And a lot of that is because as I think back and reflect on what have the elders been going through, it kind of dawned on me this week that we've been spending a time in the wilderness. And we've had a lot of questions to answer. We've had a lot of information that we've needed to process. And I think if you look at how God works in many people's lives, it's very common for him to take people through a period in the wilderness. And we weren't figuratively hanging out in the woods or in the mountains. We were, literally going through a time of wilderness, a time where, like Moses and David and Jesus, he was using this time to prepare us for the ministry that we had to come as elders of this church. And it's been a challenging time. When you spend time in the wilderness, it's usually not a comfortable time. God's growing you. He's challenging you. He's changing your perspective so that you see things the way that he sees things, not the way that I want my eyes to see things. And we've had to go through that not only individually as elders, but also as a group. When we first began kind of having discussions about, is this the right next step for CBC? Do we feel God leading us in this direction? Even as elders, we move through this information, this process in a different way. Some of our elders on the very first conversation were like, yes, we should have moved yesterday. And some of us were like, whoa, is this? And I can say that because I was one of those people. Is this right? And I had some questions and concerns that I needed to process and work through the information. And so we've gone through that time in the wilderness, and I think we kind of emerged out of that last weekend at the elder retreat, confident that God is leading us in this direction on this path. And we now have kind of processed this information in the way that we needed to. And that elder retreat seems like about 3 months ago because so much has happened even just in the past week. And we're thankful for God leading and just being active in this whole process. But we recognize now as elders, we emerge from the wilderness, but we now get a step back in it. But we get a step back in it with you. Because you are also going to go through this time in the wilderness and this whole process. You're going to need time to take the information that we've processed as an elder board and process through that yourself. And think about what does this mean for me? What is God trying to teach me through this time? And again, not only individually, but us as a corporate body. And so our job as elders is now to be really clear with communication. And we haven't been to this point because part of it is we weren't quite sure what to communicate. And now we have a pretty clear understanding of what we need to communicate. And that's going to begin next weekend. If you noticed in your bulletin, next weekend, the elders are going to host a town hall meeting on Sunday during second service, during third service, and after third service. We want to provide plenty of opportunity for you to come and hear the information that we have gathered and that we have processed so that you can begin your own process through this journey. And we recognize that process isn't going to end next Sunday if you join us next Sunday. We're also going to offer the exact same meeting on March 3rd. And so again, another opportunity to come and get that information. And we recognize you're going to have time to go through this, to pray about this, to process all this information, to get questions and concerns that you have answered. And we want to be upfront and transparent as an elder board. And so we're going to share all that information with you. And if it doesn't work for you in that setting or on that Sunday, I want to encourage you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you have questions, I'd be happy to meet you I don't drink coffee, but if you want to drink coffee, I'd sit and chat with you while you drink coffee and talk through these things, because we recognize everybody's going to have to work through this process kind of in their own way. And God's going to take us through that in our own path as the Spirit is at work. And again, it's no coincidence that Seth has talked about the Holy Spirit at work in us and growing us. And that, again, is the process that we get to go through as a church body. And it's an exciting time. There's things that can be scary and nervous at times, and I've experienced those emotions in this process. And so it'd be natural for you to experience those as well. So some things to be looking forward to, those town hall meetings. There'll be lots of other types of communication coming out in this process. But 11 weeks from today, we are going to host a capital campaign banquet where we're going to launch this whole process off. And we want you to come and celebrate that day with us. So we'd encourage you to put that date on your calendars. Again, that's 11 weeks from today. It is a Sunday. We'll meet from 5:30 to 7:30, and you'll get more details about that in the upcoming months. But we want to give you that next 11 weeks to process all this information, to understand what it means for us as a church body, so that together we can go through this time in the wilderness and emerge a church that God has changed for his good and for his glory. And that's an exciting time. So our theme for our campaign will be Forward in Faith. And I think it's very, very appropriate. God didn't create us to stay where we're at and who we are. He's constantly at work through the Spirit, changing us to be more and more like him. And so we're going to move forward, and we're going to do that in faith. There's a lot of unknowns in this process, as there is anytime we experience change, but we're trusting that God is out front leading, and we're praying that we as elders and as a church body would be sensitive to his leading in this process and trusting his will for us as a church. So again, I encourage you to come and be a part of those town hall meetings. Don't hesitate if you catch me in the hallways and want to have a conversation. I'll stop what I'm doing and take the time to listen, because this is an important time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck.